All right, welcome in to episode 02 of Gasser's Garage. I'm Steve Thornton, owner of Master Gassers, and it is currently 79 degrees in the garage. It is an absolutely gorgeous day in Arizona, and I'm certainly not complaining about that. This morning, we got the Garet Williamson announcement that most of us were waiting for. This was expected. It was in the rumor mill, and it was pretty much an any day now announcement, and it finally came this morning, and that's going to bring the World of Outlaws full-time driver roster to 9 guys. On the high limit side of things, they got 8 confirmations, and what I want to get into, is who's left. So bring the graphic up on your screen now, and you're going to see this swimming pool down below. And those are the guys that I think might be thinking about joining a national tour. They might not have plans lined up yet, or they might have the means to do a national tour, but just might not be ready yet. So on the left side of this graphic, you'll see the World of Outlaws full-timers, and then you'll see down below there some guys that I have are expected. Buddy Kofoid in Roth Motorsports, Gio Selzy in the KCP team. I think we can pencil them in as confirmed for the Outlaws. That would bring the Outlaw roster to 11. And then I think the Bill Rose Racing number 6, whoever ends up in that seat, I think we see that car back out on tour as well. So that brings them to 12. 12 it's a good number. I think it's where both series want to be. And I think what that's going to do is it might deter some of these teams that were thinking about joining the World of Outlaws full-time. And, now with all these regional series popping up, I think, they might think about just doing a pick and choose schedule and filling in with some all-star stuff, some Power Eye stuff, and then some outlaw and high limit stuff when they can. To me, that makes a lot of sense for a lot of these teams, but you never know. I think with high limit, where they're at right now, with 8 full-timers, and then with Brent Marks I've heard that he's not going to join. I heard that he is going to join. If I had to guess, if I was a betting man on Brent Marks, I think we do see him back at least for one more season. I think it just kind of makes sense for him to do that. And then, if it doesn't go his way or he doesn't think it went very well, then I think we see him go back to a pick and choose in 2026. So Brent Marks, I think we can almost pencil him in, very lightly on the high limit side. That would give them 9. And then, that kind of leaves like 3 open spots, and they're all on the high limit side of things. Now, does that mean that they're definitely going to get to 12? I don't know. I honestly don't think so. I think, 11 is very possible. And I think we could see the Outlaws go as high as 14. But I think, maximum maybe 13 on the Outlaw side and maybe 11 on the high limit side. So in the middle there, I have the guys who were on a national tour last year. We do know what most of these guys will be doing next year. A lot of them will be on a pick and choose, and then a few of them just haven't announced plans or don't have plans yet. So looking down below in this swimming pool, I'm kind of just going to, rattle off these names kind of at random and just go into, why I think they're good candidates for a national tour, or why, they haven't announced their plans yet for next season. So the first one is Cale Thomas. I have him written down there with Zeb Wise and Chase Randall, because we just don't know what cars that these guys are going to be driving. I think all of these guys, with Zeb and Chase Randall and Cale Thomas, I think that they're national tour caliber drivers in the right situations. We saw Zeb do very well with the All-Stars 2 seasons ago. He struggled with high limit last year, but I'm a big fan of Zeb Wise. I think Zeb Wise, has what it takes to be a national tour caliber driver. I think, in the right situation, he could do so again next season. I just don't think that there's that many options out there for Zeb, for Chase Randall, and for Cale Thomas. Now, Chase Randall, I've heard that he does have plans for next season in the rumor mill. And, if this does come true, I think we could see Chase Randall join the High Limit Tour, but we just don't know how true those rumors are. and what that looks like for next season. So if all three of those guys find good rides next year somehow, then we could see all three of them join a tour. But I just think that's highly unlikely at this moment. So Brian Brown, Brian Brown was thinking about joining the High Limit Tour last season. Ultimately went to a pick and choose schedule. He didn't run locally at Knoxville for the first time, in a while. And, he had a down year in terms of wins, but I'd say he was like very competitive against the national tours when he raced against them. So, I couldn't fully rule out Brian Brown. I think he's a better candidate to do the same thing again, run a big pick and choose, run some Knoxville stuff, run some Power Eye stuff, run some Outlaw stuff, and then run some High Limit stuff. That makes sense for Brian Brown. But it wouldn't 100% fully shock me to see Brian Brown, commit to the High Limit Series. I just think that there's certain obstacles in the schedule that would deter a team like Brian Brown, away from the Midwest. So Anthony Macri, next on this list, would be a massive get for either side. He's got a huge following. He's a PA Posse favorite. He shows up, he can win on any given night against the National Series. And, he wins a lot of races on this pick and choose schedule that he's been running the past couple years. Now, do I think that they're going to, go away from Central PA, especially with all this new money popping up in terms of the regional stuff? Probably not. It just doesn't make sense. Macri was in the top 10 in money. He was second in the country in wins. And he's not reaping the benefits that come with, being on a national tour. He's not getting points fund money. He's not getting tow money. But if he doesn't have to travel as much, then that tow money is just going to cancel itself out, but because he can just be winning races, in central Pennsylvania. So, we have to include Macri every single year in this conversation. It's like, will Macri join a national tour? Probably not. And why would he? I don't blame him. So Emerson Axsom, I'm putting Emerson Axsom in the category of he's definitely ready to be on a national tour. He raced, I think, 33 times against the High Limit and the Outlaw guys last year, and obviously fared very well. He caught the attention of a lot of fans. A lot of other drivers were very impressed with how Emerson Axsom did in really his first full season in a 410. I was very impressed, and I think Emerson Axsom would be a huge get for either side if he did decide to go on a national tour. I do think out of all the drivers in this swimming pool, that Emerson Axsom is, one of the ones that is, most likely could be on a national tour out of this group. So definitely not out of the question for Emerson Axsom, but you know what? With these regional series popping up, Emerson Axsom could easily go ring off, 9-10 wins against the All-Stars, against the Power Eye. He could run locally in PA or Ohio or at Knoxville and ring off some wins. So like I said, there's just so much money on the table, now all over the country that there's so many options for these guys to show up and race for a good chunk of money that they previously couldn't. So Chase Randall, I touched on him earlier. Danny Sams, he was one of the guys that is rumored to be joining the Outlaws. There was a lot of rumors surrounding Danny Sams last year. If he could get the funding, we're likely going to see him on a national tour. But I think, now with what the Outlaw roster is looking like, with a lot of these guys joining and all these regional series popping up, I think we see Danny Sams probably, maybe stick to a pick and choose again. And just race a bunch. He probably raced 70, 80 times last season. He could probably do that again. Or if he does decide to go on a national tour, I almost think it makes more sense for him to go to the High Limit side of things. So Danny Sams, he's definitely a name that you want to watch for in these next couple, weeks before the season starts. He could be coming out with a huge regional schedule. He could be one of the Power Eye announcements. I've heard that the Power Eye series already has 6 full-time confirmations, and as many as 14 guys that have reached out to that are interested in the Power Eye stuff. So that could very well be Danny Sams in that category. Austin McCarl, We know he's hiring new crew guys. You know, he's going to be ramping it up for a bigger schedule. He's definitely not going to be running locally at Knoxville as much. And originally, I think it was rumored that, you know, McCarl could be looking at the World of Outlaws schedule, but I just, you know, like I said, it's kind of the same thing with Danny Sams. You know, looking at this current Outlaws roster, you know, does it make sense for Austin McCarl to join this series full time? I don't know if it does. I think it makes more sense for Austin McCarl to run a massive pick and choose schedule. You know, he could start in Florida with the Outlaws. He could start in Vegas with High Limit if he wanted to. But I think if he does, you know, want to join a national series, you know, High Limit, again, like, they have more space now. You know, last year it was reversed. You know, the Outlaws had more space for guys to join because High Limit had 16 full-time drivers, and it was just, it doesn't work well if you're not running up front every night. It's just not financially a good move to, you know, run 15th with High Limit every single night, because, you know, you're logging all these miles on the road and you're just not making very much money. So Austin McCarl, definitely another name to watch in these next couple of weeks. Hunter Schoenberg and the Vermeer team, you know, pairing back up for another go at it. And, you know, this car was on the High Limit Tour last year with Chris Windom, and I just don't know if they're going to be joining the Tour again. I kind of put them in the same boat as an Austin McCarl, as an Emerson Axsom. You know, it almost makes sense for this team to just stay around the Midwest, stay around Ohio, Pennsylvania. They could just build this big schedule where, you know, they pick and choose a bunch of races that they think that they would fare well at. So also wouldn't shock me to see them, you know, back on the High Limit Tour. I think Hunter Schoenberg, you know, could fare pretty well with this current roster of High Limit guys. I think we could see him have some good runs, but I just don't know if he would be, you know, a top 5 guy with the current High Limit roster. So I bet that Vermeer team is probably thinking about running a pick and choose, because there's a lot of races out there and a lot of races that are paying decent money. So Skylar G, I kind of touched on Skylar G in my last video about potentially being a guy that could join the All-Stars or the Power I Series. And but I think he's also a guy that could be joining a national tour. He probably had his best 410 season last year, ran really well. He qualified for some crown jewels, and, you know, this team, it wouldn't shock me to see them run the High Limit schedule. I think they have the means to do so. They already run 60, 70, 80 races a season. And, you know, why not join a national tour if you're already doing that? So, again, you know, it almost makes sense for a big regional schedule, but Skylar G on a High Limit Tour, it's not out of the question. Almost the same exact thing could be said about Cy Lynch. You know, I talked about him in the last video. He ran half the High Limit schedule last year, and I think he's a good candidate. I think he would do well. I just don't think that he has the funding, and I think now with, you know, the All-Stars coming back right in his home territory, that we could see him, you know, stick to a regional schedule this year. So that wouldn't shock me either. Cy Lynch, you know, on a big pick and choose like he usually does. And, you know, the last guy on this list, Logan McCandless, he's hiring 3 new crew guys. I heard someone had mentioned to me that he bought like 10 brand new chassis. Like, he's ready to ramp up for a huge schedule in 2025. And, you know, it wouldn't shock me to see a Logan McCandless announcement on a national tour, but I think he loops in with that category of guys that now, with all of this regional stuff popping up, like, he could, you know, run 50 races with the All-Stars and the Power I stuff, and I think he could actually fare pretty well. You know, Logan McCandless won a couple races last year. I think he improved tremendously from what we saw when he ran with the All-Stars a little bit in 2023. So Logan McCandless, definitely another name to watch for an announcement coming soon. And, you know, that's all I got for you guys today, you know. So keep all of these guys down here in the swimming pool. You know, keep a watch, you know, maybe put their alerts on, because I do think we're going to see some announcements from some of these guys. So if you liked the video today, subscribe. Already hit 100 subscribers. I appreciate all the support, and we'll see you next time.